really surprising at Dignitas if they want to find another third split against such a top-tier team. First ban already is going to be tier, really respecting variety.
I respect variety on that tier as well. He can be a bit of a monster in that solo lane when he gets it. It's something that he's very comfortable on, so no surprise that they're banning it out. Dignitas, though, choosing to get rid of Cirquet, so trying to limit some of the options for Poppies in the jungle.
Also trying to protect their solo laner. Cirquet is one of these goddesses that just can absolutely devastate the solo lane next to Nemesis on top of this. And knowing Poppy's lineup, their front line between Dalo and Draco Marino there, those two players will really look to try to engage specifically in that solo lane.
Erlang Shen, the first pick for Poppies. Erlang has been a little bit flex. He can sometimes go into the jungle as well, but I do likely think this will go to Creed in the solo lane. And then Sol and Amuz and Cobb picked up for Dig.
I love this play. First of all, I love Amuz and Cobb personally.
Yeah, he does.
I really do. I just spam it all the time in rank. But either way, Dignitas, they don't pick this just for the Hunter position. They also can flex this in the mid-roll to give it to Zeros, trying to get that mid lane control. Amuz and Cobb has one of the highest lane pressure dominance in all of SMITE.
That solo Amuz and Cobb is going to be a bit of a flex that Dig has available to him, but Poppy's not really flexing. They've got Raijin, who's a real strong mid laner right now, and Hu Yi, whose early jungle clear is just nuts, totally.
Just good team fights, good balance of team fights, because if there's going to be a big team fight around an objective such as Gold Fury or Fire Giant, Hu Yi is going to be good for that. But if there's going to be a team fight around a lane, Raijin will be dominant.
Bellona, the pick for Dignitas, so Variety likely going to be very comfortable on that Bellona for Dignitas, something he's been playing for a long time. Just all around good god for them to pick up. And still, they got a bit of an eye for the jungle. It was Susano and Nemesis both banned out.
Trying to really focus out Dalo, not wanting to get him in a comfortable position, making sure that the penetration is not available with that Nemesis, keeping the late game hopes alive. Also, it's very annoying for an Amuz and Cobb to have to deal with such junglers that can easily dive the backline.
That's right. Those are all junglers that can definitely cause a problem for Amuz and Cobb. And that early 3v3 nowadays is so important, totally. Controlling those buffs, getting those timers can kind of set the way those first 5-7 minutes go. I think that's why we see them end up picking Robin and Ganesh. That'll give you plenty of pressure.
3v3 was always a big determining factor in all of SMITE, but now more than ever, because these teams are just so close neck and neck competitively that all the team fights are not necessarily around Gold Fury or the Fire Giant. You got to take the little wins to help build the foundation before you can get to the top level of the skyscraper.
Dignitas ban out Susano, Nemesis, or Ket, and are still able to last pick Camazotz.
That's really surprising.
Where are we right now?
I mean, Cubo Fred will be happy knowing that he got Camazotz as the last pick here. Bellona for Variety is going to allow him to also shut it down, this Hu Yi pick. Every time Mark of the Golden Crow is coming out, that Scourge is sure to follow.
And we talked a little bit about how important the 3v3 is. It's sort of changed a little bit now because the meta's shifted. Now that we're seeing sometimes the Hunters in the middle lane and sending the Guardians over to just farm in the long lane alone, the 3v3 pressure is even more important. So I think that's what we're going to be expecting out of as Zeros does take Soul. So between Zeros and Cubo Fred, I mean, they'll have some pressure on this side of the side of the map.
Despite Zeros not playing the Amuz and Cobb, the way Europeans have been playing SMITE recently, at least competitively, is putting the Hunter in the mid lane next to their mid mage, recognizing that between the mage and the Hunter, that's probably one of the strongest 2v2 lane clears that you'll ever have in SMITE. So you do that, you look to make the rotation after the fact, and if you have that pressure, you can look for some invades shortly after.
And it looks like we don't see this a whole lot. Draco Marino and Trickstank are both going to be the ones in the long lane, so it's going to be Guardian v Guardian. Usually it's one of your Hunters is chilling over there against a Guardian. So Trickstank and Draco Marino probably just going to be slapping around so you can clear a little bit more and then rotate over to these fights. It's going to be 2v2 in the other two lanes.
Really trying to find this boxing potential. Not wanting to take it against the Bellona, though. She can easily AoE clear with that bludgeon and also the hammer that's soon to follow, giving the elementals to Dignitas as well as those right side Harpies. Actually split 1-for-1 on those Harpies.
As Mr. Nazer rotating over with Raijin, able to help get those up. But as you said, the pressure in that solo lane has gone in favor of Dignitas. So those elementals are theirs. They're back to the wave first. And they'll have a chance here if they want to come over and try and contest the speed buff or just go back and secure their own, which it looks like is the call.
It seems that way, as well as Dignitas making the rotation for these neutral camps. The buffs are still going to be up for them later on, but look at this rotation. They're trying to kind of stop Dignitas, but they were a little bit too late. Recognizing this, now have to settle for their own rev. So a slight edge for Dignitas, controlling the elementals and 3 out of 4 of the mid Harpies.
And everyone on Team Dignitas, if we talk about like what their team fight potential is looking like, it's real scary from me. I mean, Balone in particular on Variety when she comes in, Cuvo, Fred, able to do a whole lot of damage, Zeros and Arkle, and then Trickstank just to keep everybody safe. It's a real scary team fight from me from this Dignitas roster.
But if you look at the other side, I'm also worried for Dignitas from Poppy's dive potential. Dalo playing this Robin has a lot of tools to be able to dive very safely between his ultimate, between that overhead kick, giving him that immunity frames.
And that's what it feels like. It feels like the Poppies have gone a little bit tankier with the Warrior Jungle, Draco Marino Creed. That's going to be their call. So how is that going to pair up against the more damage focus that we're getting from Dignitas? Is probably going to be the determining factor in this game.
I just feel that Poppy's composition is slightly more aggressive. Their appeals are not that great as opposed to Dignitas simply because of the Geb. Geb having the shield, the Cataclysm, the knockup, whereas Draco Marino is going to control a lot of space with the Dharmic Pillars and then just augment the rest of his team's damage with that ball.
And it makes more sense, if you want to go for the Assassin Jungle instead of having, another slightly tanky presence for you, then making sure you pick up Geb, who can get your team out of danger, really is the smart call for him out of that support role. So that's what we're going to be looking from Trickstank. If Cuvo goes in deep on like Mr. Nazer or Warchi, he'll make sure he gets back out. Something like that is what we're going to be expecting from him.
Good timing from Poppy, securing their own purple buff, not able to steal their way into Dignitas, but at the end of the day, rather, still doing a good job keeping everything in line. No one is like really too far behind. They're just playing a very slow and meticulous, calculating farming game, hitting level 5 first, but still not wanting to press forward, being very defensive-minded.
I think you're right about that pick idea from the Poppies, too. Take a look at Dalo. He's gone with Blink for Robin, so he really is looking for that engage, that initiation on those team fights. He wants to be the one going in and saying, this is the target that I'm going to root out so that we can go ahead and take him down quick.
As a Robin, you just got to get in there and throw them bows every single time that you can get. You're trying to get the slow off and allow Mr. Nazer to follow up with a Raijin, and the range provided from Mr. Nazer is good enough to allow Dalo to make that Blink play. And honestly, you don't even have to worry about defensive peel for Dalo because of how much he can bait with his kit.
And we're seeing a lot of what we were seeing from this early meta. Now that those neutral camps have been farmed up, there's really not much farm on the map. That's when we bring our hunters back over to this long lane over here on the Gold Fury side of the map so they can get this dedicated farm. And now Trickstank and Draco Marino are back a part of that mid fight, but it's actually Cuvo Fred who's hanging out on the right side with Erlong Shen. 4
out of 5 Dignitas members are actually at the top of the experience per minute, doing a good job of just min-maxing their rotations. And that's just what happens whenever you clear the lane first and being able to control those neutral mid objectives, whether it's Elementals, mid Harpies, or the Oracles.
And it's also a little bit of what happens when you're maybe the best team in the world, like Dignitas is, going up against, a lower end team. You start to be able to develop those early game leads, even without any kills or any invades or anything happening. They're just working a little bit better on the map. And we see Mr. Nazer going in a little bit on the zeros, but just having to back off, so not too much that comes from it. And Morchi will take his red.
Really abusing the fact that Zeros didn't back to lane yet. He has still his starter item and that tiny trinket, whereas Nazer sitting with a good power spike, finishing off that Book of Thoth, neglecting going for that starter item, puts him in a comfortable spot. And the fact that Dignitas hasn't abused him quite yet is allowing him to safely farm.
And my eyes are on Cuvo Fred for that as the ultimate comes out from Warchi on top of Arkle. If Mr. Danger is going to go for this Book of Thoth with that limited mobility, or like, as you said, not nearly as much sustain, come over here. You don't necessarily have to get the kill, but just poke him out. Make him go back to base more often.
And it's not a bad idea for Nazer to do this route simply because Draco Marino's on the Ginash. He has the damage and the aggression followed with Dalo's Raven. So this is probably the best mind to pursue, rather, the aggressive mindset from Poppies if they're going to try to catch a W here.
And we talked about it a little bit already, but Dignitas do have about a 700 to 800 or so gold lead just from being able to control some of that neutral farm a little bit better. The experience lead, though, you mentioned, where they're sitting up at the top of the chart, all 5 members, is what could potentially be a problem at about 1,700 gold in their favor.
That's just how you could tell the top tier team from a good team. Their ability to take nothing and make a little bit of something out of it. And that's something Dignitas have been doing time in and time out ever since their inception in the beginning of Season 4 with Variety's new team. They just always have been making the plays.
Trickstank could be in trouble. Had to use the Cataclysm to force back Dalo and Warchi. Dalo's ultimate just to try and close the space, but Arkle's here now, and that's the damage a Moose and Cobb can put out. Immediately, 2 members got to turn around.
Good discipline by Arkle, not pursuing doing to pick up the Stinger. It's very tempting sometimes to want to go for it. You know, like, yeah, I got the hit. If I pick this up 20 more seconds, I could go in again, but recognizing 2 additional Poppy members were right around the corner.
And that's because of their ward control on this side of the map. They've got 4 wards over here, so they would have been able to see that rotation from Draco Marino and Mr. Nazer and Arkle backing up, saying it ain't worth it. I know that cooldown's good, but it's not worth my life.
And just like this, Arkle 2-level lead over Warchi. Also a substantial health lead, being able to really bully this lane even further, despite Draco Marino being there.
And it frees up Trickstank to come over here and rotate to these fire elementals when Draco Marino has to stick around. Mr. Nazer gets the jump interrupted, and those elementals go the way of Dignitas. So that's an example of pressure on the duo lane, freeing up Trickstank to come impact those elementals.
Just a slow and steady pace of a tug of war that Dignitas are winning since the beginning. It seems that Poppies, they can't really find the right hole to poke into to get any sort of a lead. As Draco Marino still sitting in the left-hand lane, making sure that Warchi doesn't get behind.
And this time, Cuvofred is here for the speed buff right as it respawns. Creed and Dalo are both here to try and contest, and Cuvo's actually kind of alone here. He's got to make sure he doesn't get caught out. That Bat out of Hell does come out right away, and he'll use it to run away. But it looks like Dalo was able to pick up his speed.
Risk versus reward out of Cuvofred, not able to steal that one away, making himself use that defensive ultimate. But it's better to use that ultimate than the Purification Bees, simply because it's a shorter cooldown, and you're able to cover so much distance with that ultimate that you can also use it offensively or defensively just like that.
And Cuvofred might even have recognized, because Creed and Dalo, both of their ultimates were down. That might have been another reason why he went for it. I'm not sure if he had that information, but he wasn't in as much danger as he might have been if those 2 ults had been there.
I mean, knowing Dignitas, yes, Cuvofred definitely had that information. Their communications are always on point, and every team here, whether it's Europe, NA, SPL, SCL, the comms are just so good here, and I'm always excited to see how these teams execute.
Dignitas executing as well as anybody right now, looking like they could be one of the best teams in the world between them and Obey. Obey, who are undefeated right now. So Dignitas, when they go up against a team like the Poppies, who I'm not saying are bad or anything, but it's a matchup they're expected to win, they really got to make sure they're getting those points because Obey aren't giving anything up.
I mean, Dignitas have proven themselves, right? They've won the summer split. Poppies haven't done nearly the same. They've always been in and out of the challenger circuit, just so close to qualifying to the SPL, finally getting their shot here yet again in the fall split. But the last split was just kind of the bottom of the pack, and thus far, they haven't been making the most progress in the world.
Dignitas once again get those fire elementals, and Poppies having a hard time contesting some of these smaller objectives. And this is what Dignitas does so well. They play very patiently, I say. They are able to build up their early lead, and then when they feel like they have an advantage, they'll either steal away an objective or just force you to fight on it.
Dignitas are just starving Poppies out, completely bleeding them to infinity, because the next power play for Dignitas is when the level 12s happen. That second relic slot opens up, and that's going to be 10 relic versus 5. That's where Dignitas is probably going to force the next neutral objective.
Dalo hanging out over here, and there's the blink coming into play. Beats already have to come out from Arkle. Ultimate over the top is enough, and Warchi ends up getting first blood, and that's what you got to do against an Amuzin Cobb.
Just no escape available, and before the level 12 happens, you don't have the Aegis and the Purification Beads. You can beads all you want against the slow from the Sons of Warchi, but the damage from Dalo is just too much to handle, especially cutting the distance with Blink.
And I think that's a great point you make, because that was a situation where neither one of them would have been enough on their own. If he'd had Aegis, still would have been stunned and slowed. It would have gotten caught out. If he had beads, as we saw, the damage was still too much. So without having both, there really wasn't a way for Arkle to get out of there. And it was an excellent gank by Dalo, who we've been saying, you know, we need to see a little more from.
Absolutely, and that's going to allow Warchi now just to get a good spot in the late game. Amuzin Cobb's late game is pretty good, especially if you can find the disarms, but Warchi is no joke as well. With that Mark of the Golden Crow, can absolutely melt any sort of tank in front of his face.
And Dignitas looking again to not give up the speed buff of Poppies for free. It's a 4v4 over here as our Hunters are both still over there in that long lane. And right now, Poppies are having to back up. The Dharmic Pillars do come out from Draco Marino to try and help contest, and Variety ends up leeching the buff. Now it's Trickstank in trouble, but Zeros cleans up Mr. Nazer, no problem. Cataclysm comes out, Dalo gets stunned, and Cuvofred is here to start trying to put in some damage.
Trying to do whatever he can, because the ultimate is not available out of Dalo. He used it in the left side, giving Dignitas the opportunity to avenge Arkle's death on the right side of the map. Dignitas are just so good about taking something out of nothing, like we saw this whole entire game, getting the neutral objectives, and now finally taking a team fight around that speed buff. Finding a kill onto Mr. Nazer was really good. simply because of the way Zeros was able to zone him out with those stellar bursts.
And that was the fight we were saying Dignitas needed to take. They needed to come down and sort of force their little bit of lead that they have on an objective. I believe they do end up stealing the speed buff away as Cuvo has one, and now it's Dalo who's underneath the Suns as Arkle is again under pressure. Trickstank is here but unable to save as Hunter Warchi ends up getting credit for that kill, now sitting 2-0-0.
Poppy's finally recognizing the weakness out of Dignitas. Not necessarily the player Arkle, but just simply the god that he's playing yet again without an escape. He did pick up now the Aegis. I think when he died the last time, he was still level 11, so he didn't pick it up, and then he hasn't back from that death till...
Clean up Trickstank, but he can't. Now Warchi's the one in no man's lane with 4 members of Team Dignitas hunting him down.
Poppy's just overextending. Luckily for Warchi, Dalo was there to back him up, being that nightclub bouncer's like, nah, you need an ID, and you need to have the proper dress code if you want to come in here, and Warchi's going to escape with his life, but so unfortunate for Poppy's. I like the idea and mindset, considering that Dignitas were not in position necessarily right off the bat, but that reset, nobody was in the circle. It's actually Cubo Fred finding the kill onto Warchi.
Yeah, Warchi could not get away. Cubo Fred looping around and catching the very low Hunter before he can get back to base. That is a big kill for him to now give a chance for Arkle to get some farm that Warchi can't get and sort of establish a little bit of that lead back in the Hunter role as Dignitas, again, steal away that Gold Fury. Now they're sitting at about 3,000.
And this is just the veteranship out of Dignitas. They're not willing to take that risk of the Gold Fury because they know they could win the little things as QFred finds Dalo off screen, finding 2 very quick kills for Dignitas' jungler, building into a very aggressive route here, going for Yoden's route for that cooldown and penetration option, and then probably going to get either a Stone Cutting Sword or that Masamune.
And Dalo was likely just trying to defend his own speed buff, which we've seen Dignitas make a point of contesting every time it comes up. They were able to take it away one more time, and now Cuvo Fred sitting at 2-0-0 on the Camazotz. That's going to be a bit of a problem for Poppies.
Absolutely. Here, he's just going to be doing too much damage, especially with Variety now sitting at about the same level. These 2 powerhouses are like kind of the Bash brothers here. If you ever saw the D3 Mighty Ducks, they're just going to go in there and just double team you.
They are very scary when they're able to rotate into a team fight. Variety is a little bit up on Creed, nothing too major, but his impact when he's able to come in so far has just been a little bit better than what Creed's been able to do. The shining point for Poppies, though, is Warchi, and we've seen Dalo come in and help set up some kills for Warchi twice, so that's what Poppies have going for them.
The biggest difference right now is the net worth difference between Creed and Variety, looking at about an 800 gold lead or so difference, and that's going to be the difference between finishing off this mystical male, also going for a different relic selection out of Variety, going for the Thorns, really trying to abuse probably Warchi in the late game with that.
And that's a smart pickup for him because what were we just saying? Warchi's kind of the lead that Poppies have, so he picks up a relic to try and shut down the area where the Poppies are going to be able to do the most damage, where they're doing the best in the laning phase so far. So that's what we're seeing from Variety. Pick up the Thorns, shut him down, while Creed just goes a little bit more team fighting. Wouldn't
be surprised to see Height of Nemi line to follow suit very shortly after that, because Mr. Nazer, despite him finishing off that Book of Thoth early on, his build has kind of staggered a little bit, going for a defensive Height of Urchin more than likely.
That Height of the Urchin will help make him a little bit more survivable, and it does have some synergy with the Book of Thoth as well, since Height of the Urchin does provide some mana as well, so he'll get a little bit more power from it, but again, that's mostly going to be a defensive item, so it could be a bit of a power spike. Arkle, though, happily taking the trade up against Warchi. It's hard to fight into a Muzen Cobb.
Especially when that Muzen Cobb has all the vision in the world to see where the other 4 members are. Arkle is going to absorb some of those shots from the Suns, but he'll be very happy knowing Warchi has the back.
Dignitas are forcing the fight. Creed is the one that's in trouble, or rather it's Dalo getting chased down by Cuba Fred up into the air, cleans that kill up, no problem. Trickstank just hanging out between the pillars and looking for more.
The shell was just a little bit too late out of Draco Marino. Mr. Nazer, though, going to get double knocked up, taking half of his health away as Draco Marino is forced to disengage. Dignitas are going to group up around this Portal Demon with Dalo dead and Warchi on the left. It's going to be an easy 4-on-3 on the right.
And there's really no way to look for Warchi trying to contest this as Dignitas do get that Portal Demon. It just, that Tier 1 tower is under a lot of trouble. Trickstank going to try and contest Draco Marino, but coming up a little short.
Trying to stop the back out of Mr. Nazer. He actually used his teleport into the left side mid-Harpies, and I think Trickstank saw it at the last second. And if he stopped that back, I think the rest of Dignitas were relatively close to be able to follow up and find another pick.
Being able to follow up and get another pick is what they were looking for. Dignitas just not quite able to get it, but they do get the Portal Demon. they set up 4-2 here in the kills, do Dignitas, and that tier 1 tower on the left for Warchi is looking like it's on its last leg. Arkle has a lot of pressure over there.
It's just very difficult to fight into this Hu Yi. He just does so much damage, and the good thing about Warchi's Hu Yi is that he's able to cover the range with those bounces. Poppy's going to try another very ambitious Gold Fury, but Dalo's very low. What?
And Arkle is able to clean up Dalo, and they drop the Gold Fury and instead try and go for the team fight. Cataclysm comes out from Trickstank, and the Zero's ultimate is immediately there to bring Warchi low. Now, Cubo Fred is going to be the one to try and clean that one up, and he does. And in the back, it's Creed trying to zone out 3, but not going very well for him. Variety not even a part of the fight.
No, he doesn't need to because the rest of his team is cleaning house. 3 dead Poppies. Variety still in mid. Creed is soon to follow. That's going to be 4 dead as Draco Marino's the only one in a surrender vote from Poppies.
Wow. Well, it's a 2